Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Online Darts, and here we have the preview for tonight's live league final. I'm Phil Bars, and this week we're joined by the asset, Paul Nicholson.
Yep.
Paul, week's worth of comms so far. How are you feeling after all?
A bit tired, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, a bit of a baptism of fire, this new setup, but I think it's been fantastic. And of course I'm going to say that, but the fact of the matter is we've had the gift of Richie Burnett this week to give us the darting entertainment that we all crave. He's played well all week, and I think there's a lot of people who are disappointed that Richie's not playing tonight, but ultimately he was thrust into Group C after not getting through Group A, and that was a particularly brutal group, I think.
Yeah, no, it was. Just want to welcome everyone along. Already people in the chat room, Charlie, everyone. How are we doing? Max is in. Hope you are all well. We're going to look through the results, the groups, and we're going to talk about the action this evening. But before we dive into it, social media the last few nights have been absolutely loving Monk v Burnett, and we're not talking about Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of this game is the longevity aspect of it. I mean, we could still potentially have someone like Keelan Kay, for instance, a very young superstar in the making, against a legend of the sport who possibly won a title back in the early 90s. So to pit those things against each other, it's almost computer game style, isn't it?
Yeah.
You talk about playing a golf game, you could have Lee Trevino versus Tiger Woods. We have the ability to have the real match live instead of just on a CGI screen. So this week we have had blasts from the past. We have had the rematch of the 96 World Masters, and I was very excited to watch that, and it didn't disappoint. It may not have been the closest of contests, but it wasn't without its own headlines.
100%. We're going to roll back to the beginning of the week. Group A seems a long, long time ago now. We're just going to put it up on screen for you. Bear with us, ladies and gents, in the chat room. We'll come to all your questions. Don't worry. Good evening, Mark. Someone asked about the fixtures for next week. Paul will announce who's playing on air this evening during play. So we're not going to
have to wait.
We're not going to spoil it now, but that's coming, guys. Don't worry about that. Good evening, mate. Mark says, any news on the Icons tour? Yes, there'll be something dropping next week, mate. Obviously, we're waiting for government guidelines on the roadmap, but yes, news coming very, very soon. Hope you are all well. Don't want that one. Want that one. Hey, there we are. Group A now on screen for you, and it was topped by the Thorn, and good signs from Robert Thornton. Played some really good stuff over the 3 days.
Yeah, I think that's true. He was a little bit nervy and a bit edgy on day one, as I think all the players were. We had a very good display from Jamie Caven. He was opportunistic at times, taking a couple of people out, especially Daryl Fitton with that huge 141 at the end. But it was Jamie's day on Monday. It was Richie's day on Tuesday. Richie was incredible on Tuesday. 109 average against Thornton in that head-to-head. I just think was in match number 14. But overall, through the course of the week, Robert paced himself really well. And when he played on Wednesday, I think he deserved to win Group A and had the bit between his teeth after the third day.
Yeah, it's nice to see. Obviously, everyone knows the troubles Robert had in his personal life and everything like that. But he seems focused again, which is dangerous.
Yeah, he said to me on Wednesday morning before we started that he was back. And I said, don't be stupid, you haven't been anywhere. And I think everybody has to go through peaks and troughs. I think nobody knows that better than Robert. He's had health issues. Obviously, his family haven't had the easiest times. His career's been up, down, all over the place. Majors won, dropped down the rankings, got back, won another major, and tournament wins in between. But ultimately, the last 2 or 3 years have not been his best. He still has the desire, and I think that is the key thing here. And I'm never going to bat against Robert Thornton when it comes to doing something, because if he's got the desire, then there's nothing he can't achieve.
Yeah, so Robert topped Group A, and for that he got a few days off, got to rest in the hotel, and we'll be fresh tonight. Then we split into Groups B and Group C. So Group B, oh no, wrong one because I got around the wrong way. Get there in the end. Interesting ones in here. We'll talk about. I've got another table to bring up in a minute, but Adrian Gray and Champagne Barrie Bates has surprised us, and you've got an interesting stat about Barry's finishing this week.
Yeah, I've been looking at the stats going into tonight's finals, and obviously Barry's going to be there. And you look back at Monday, where everybody had a bit of a shaky start, and there were some good displays, but Barrie was not on Monday. You could see there was a lot of ring rust there. He looked quite uncomfortable. But once he's shaked off that initial ring rust, he was starting to play some half decent darts. I think as each day has gone on, he looked a bit more assured with some of the challenges he's been facing. And throughout the week, the one thing that has been a constant is the impressive big finishing. Now, he's hit 8 ton-plus checkouts for this week, and he has played more legs than anybody else. I have to mention that. He's played 25 games, and the next most is 15 by Robert Thornton. But ultimately, he has 5 more ton-plus checkouts ahead than anybody else. And some of those checkouts are not your measly 101s and your 104s. We're talking about a 161, a 160, and a 140, amongst others. This has been phenomenal, and there should have been more. He's missed at 158, he's missed, I think, at 156 as well. And Barrie Bates on the finishing has been very, very dangerous. So he's not one for big averages, but he's one for big finishes.
Yeah, and Adrian Gray had a difficult Q score, a difficult year on tour as well, everything going on. But he played some good stuff in spells. We saw some good 96 averages from him along the way. And again, this could be a stepping stone for him.
It could be. I think Adrian, when you look at him, obviously we've got the split screen technology with the online Darts Live League, and we can see the focus in the eyes of the player. When he was playing on the first day, there was a real intensity about him. I think when he gets that intensity, he can raise his game to a very competitive level. I think there's still a lot more that Adrian can give. I'm convinced that maybe Adrian has not found the level of belief at steel tip darts that he genuinely has inside him. I think he's still yet to find something, and this could be a vehicle for him to find that.
You've played some soft tip with him. How hard is the transition from one to the other, like he's trying to do? Because he still plays soft tip when we're allowed to. Obviously, he hasn't as much as he'd like to at the moment. But how difficult is that transition when you're trying to do both?
It's harder for others than it is for him. I was explaining in commentary this week that the way that Adrian delivers the dart, the way he grips his barrel with a steel tip and, of course, with a soft tip, it's exactly the same. So his game doesn't have to change. The only thing that does change is the height of the board and the distance from where you throw. It's 8 feet with soft tip, of course, and only 7'9¼ I say only. But at the same time, the technical side of it and the tactics side, there's not a great deal of difference, in my opinion. Tactical darts with soft tip, there's not many better in the world than Adrian Gray. At steel tip, I'm not entirely sure that he's 100%, but he's a sort of 98, 99% guy. He does make the odd tactical error, and I have to be honest about that, because I think being taught by some of the new continental players from over in Central Europe that there are better ways to approach finishes, and I think that's something that he could possibly learn over the coming weeks.
Also on Thursday, Jamie Caven suffered a nasty injury during play, and but you called it on commentary. You could see he was visibly in pain, torn his rotator cuff in his right shoulder. That's a difficult one to play, those last few games that he did on Thursday. Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure how he got through it. It must have been a bit of adrenaline pumping through his body, and it's amazing what you can do with that adrenaline. It's fantastic stuff. And my first emotion is that I'm really displeased that Jamie has had this setback early in 2021, because I know how much he wanted to try and regain his form post-COVID. And this was a great opportunity for him to start that journey back to where he wants to be. But unfortunately, it hasn't worked out, and a rotator cuff injury is something that could hamper the rest of his career potentially.
Misfortune for Jabba. However, his replacement, Jamie Kellin, stepped in and was almost stolen the show this week. I know he only played one day, but he almost got himself into the final with just one day. And I told everyone that give him time, he'll settle. And he settled on Friday, having played last week, didn't he?
I think that definitely helps. You know, he played last week, and he didn't look the player last week that he was this week. There was a definite settling of Jamie Kellin this week. It's my first time watching him since he was on the New Kids on the Oppie, which is a long time ago. He looks like a completely different guy. He's 31 years old now. But the player that we saw yesterday, I think there are a lot of people out there who were saying, hang about, he's actually got something. And he's been involved in a match today with Richard North. He lost out by 7-6, I believe. But ultimately, when you're troubling someone like Richard North, who is a seasoned professional, ultimately not on the tour, admittedly, but I just get the feeling that there's something about Jamie Kellin that is very encouraging indeed.
And we saw on the Live League last year what this can do for players. It wasn't a coincidence that David Evans, Keane Barry and Richie Addas, when play returned, went and absolutely demolished the Challenger Development Tours.
It's no accident at all. I think you look at the amount of reps and the games that Richie and Dave had, especially. I mean, Keane joined us later when he turned 18. I think he won his first daily title the day after his 18th birthday. But that's just Keane Barrie. That's what he does. But for Dave and for Richie especially, I think it was a perfect opportunity to play against great players week in, week out, and build a confidence tree, as I like to call it. And ultimately, them getting through the Challenge Tour was absolutely no accident. Both great players, but utilising this format definitely worked for them.
And then from there, we had obviously the evening group. Just get that up on screen for you now. There we are. And again, we spoke about it earlier, but the name at the top, that's not a surprise, is it? We've seen, arguably, he should have a tour card. That's for another video. Yeah. But he's got his shot on the Super Series over the last two, and he's troubled the very best in the world. And he's come in, and that's impressive, only losing one in 8 games.
There's always one player every year who almost gets a tour card or who doesn't have one, who has this incredible ability. And it's Chaz this year. It's ultimately Chaz's year because he, as the first alternate from the UK Q School and not having a card, has the cushion of being able to play in this, in other amateur events and other streamed events because he doesn't have a card. And as an alternate, he can potentially play with the Pro Tour as well. So he's going to play more darts in 2021 than he's ever played before. And the way he started the year, the way he's built confidence by beating the likes of Price and a lot of others and putting in really, really wicked displays. Just get the feeling that we haven't heard the last of this guy, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing him tonight.
Second spot on the table, the best professional amateur, as we like to call him, Paul Hogan. How does he keep doing it? Because he's got the ability, or had the ability. That obviously COVID has taken people's maximum ceiling away from them a little bit because they haven't had competitive darts. But 2 or 3 years ago, he could have gone and mixed it with the very best.
Chose not to, though. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people out there who underestimate the element of choice. Paul Hogan's has always liked the element of choice. He's been playing the amateur level for the best part of 30 years. He's always been a phenomenal county player, a great local competition player, and to have the choice of where he wants to play and when he wants to play, that's his comfort zone, and that's okay. Not going to Q School and not having someone tell him where to go and when, I think that's the way he wants to play the game. And I think he's going to remain that way. He's a bit more seasoned now. He's not at the same age as someone like Johnny Clayton, who still has a good 15 years ahead of him. I think Paul Hogan just wants to enjoy his darts, and ultimately, while he still does, he's always going to trouble people.
That's how the final was made up, ladies and gents. We're going to bring you the graphic up on screen now. Any questions, get them in the chat room. We will come to them shortly. So there it is on screen, the weekly bracket on how the final is made up. So our final 5 this evening: Robert Thornton, Chaz Barstow, Paul Hogan, Adrian Gray, and Barrie Bates. Before we go through where this could be won and lost tonight, Paul, who's favourite before a darts thrown this evening?
Barstow. Has to be. And a lot of people are going to say Robert Thornton, but you said it, he's had 2 days off. Barstow's played a night session the last 2 nights. He's in a comfort zone. He's in a winning state of mind playing in the evening session. Robert Thornton played Group A in the morning in this atmosphere. I know because it's a completely sealed room, doesn't matter whether it's morning or night time, but the old body clock might come into it. Will Robert Thornton feel more comfortable at night time? Possibly. I think he's going to have to. And he's going to have to find a lot more 180s if he's going to contend with Barstow, in my opinion.
We'll come on to that interesting stat shortly. But the fixtures for this evening, Barry's got a tough one first up, isn't he? Against Chaz.
Barrie has got the lowest running average for the week and the best ton plus finishing stats. So if he's going to contend tonight and have any sort of chance, he's going to have to get that incremental improvement once more. But looking into his career, you see that he's never had the big average, the 105, the 110. He's always been someone who had an A game of around 95, 96. Now, if you do that tonight, that might be good enough. But there are players in this mix who are capable of averaging much more than that. That's how I feel about Barry's chances. I think if he finds a way to 3rd spot, I think he'd be quite happy with that.
all eyes on game 10. And by the way, this wasn't done deliberately. The fixtures are done on where you finish in your relevant tables and everything like that. You get put into a 1 to 5 slot and they're generated from there.
Yeah.
However, we've been spoiled that the last game of the evening could have it all on the line.
I'd like to think so. I mean, that game is going to be played after midnight, so it's a bit of late night action, hopefully. I mean, I don't want this to be a bit like last night, where the last game wasn't really for anything. It was for pride, it was for league position, potentially, but I want that one to be the title match. We'd like it to be that way, and we just have to wait and see if that is the case. But it is a fabulous prospect.
Yeah, across these 10 matches, who needs to pick up points early in the big games? If they obviously we've talked about Barstow and Thornton being the two big hitters, but if Hogan or Gray want to break that stance at the top, they're going to have to try and nick points again in big games and big moments.
Yeah, I think if you look at the way that Paul Hogan played on Thursday, he got a good start. Ultimately, it was an undefeated night. He got a bad start last night. It turned out to be a bad night, and they only just got through. So with that in mind, I think maybe Hogan, if he wants to get the title and join Scott Marsh as a weekly winner, I think Hogan might have to get the hotter start.
Yeah, and you've touched on the name there, Scott Marsh. That's the reason I brought that up, because going into last week's final, all the talk was about Martin Adams and Aaron Monk. And Scott Marsh went under the radar and picked them both. And a bit like now, we're talking about these two clear favourites, but could Paul Hogan just slide under it and go and win it?
Yeah, of course he could. I think, no disrespect to Barrie Bates, I've loved what he's done this week. I absolutely love his fighting spirit, because he was on the floor on Monday afternoon. We didn't think he was going to contend, but he's played more games than anybody else. He has probably fought harder than anybody else this week, maybe with the exception of Jamie Caven, who's played through injury. But at the same time, the averages do tell a story as to what the level we're expecting for tonight is going to be. That's why we look at Thornton. That's why we look at Barstow as potential favourites. But you're right about Hogan. He's only averaged 88, 89 for the week. He's got a good 10 on that, easily. If he finds it tonight, he could be the one to go under the radar like Marsh last week, I think he will.
So talk about like the involvement of the Live League, because you were involved from the start, where we came to where we are now, is just remarkable. And this could be a great thing for these people that want to get to the next level of their career. We talked about it earlier, but if you weren't a pro now, you'd love this environment, wouldn't you? This is the best practice, and not just practice, but getting ready mentally for these big games as well.
Playing against a player in the same room, and I never thought I'd think that was such a big thing. You know, last year, the likes of Evans and Ed House and myself, Andy Jenkins, and all the others who took part, we were incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to distract ourselves from a very difficult year to focus on the thing that we love, which is playing darts. And ultimately, for me, it was commentating on darts as well. And to see so many great displays, it was a privilege to play in this. But you're right, there are people now who don't have a tour card, and one of their first thoughts is, I wonder if I get in the Online Darts Live League. I wonder if they'll accept me as a player. And there are more players wanting to play in this than ever before, because I get the feeling this isn't going away.
And like you say, the 1-2-8 are obviously the elite of the sport. They're part of that for a reason. But under that, this is the next best thing. This is constant. At the moment, we don't know when Challenge Tours, Development Tours are going to be. Yes, we know they'll come into play sooner or later this year. But at the moment, if you're in that next bracket, I'm there. This is perfect.
Of course it is. Yeah, we don't know when the Challenge Tour is going to be back. We don't know when the Development Tour is going to be back. And we want them back as soon as possible. But ultimately, the people who don't have cards will be thinking, where am I going to play next? What is the best thing I can do right now? And you have to say, this is it. This is a COVID-safe environment where you can play against really, really good players of experience, youth, exuberance, and find out where your game's at. And I think this thing has evolved exponentially since the end of the summer. And who knows where it'll be this time next year, maybe.
Yeah, it's going to go back, obviously, today. Chaz Barstow's 180 hitting. Is that going to be the key tonight? If he hits the numbers that he's hit the last two nights. Can you see anyone beating him if he produces that scoring power?
If he maxes the way that he has so far, which is 21 180s in 8 matches, which is averaging almost three a match, then he's going to have all sorts of fun with other people. And nobody is close to that sort of ratio. So that's why I think Barstow has to be the favourite for this league title tonight. There are other players who can pop those 180s in, especially Robert Thornton, because he's going to bring the tenacity tonight, he's going to bring the aggression. And you saw what he did on Wednesday. He genuinely wanted that top spot, and he will want this tonight so badly. So I think it is between those two. And that 180 hitting the Barstow is a key thing. Yeah, 100%. People asking in the chat room, yes, so we put the graphic up on screen, but it's a weekly tournament, isn't it, Paul? That each week there'll be a winner. They don't roll over from week to week. It's weeks at a time. So Scott Marsh won the weekly title last week, and we will have a winner this evening. That's how it goes down. Yeah, we talk about the daily winners. We want to obviously give every day a bit of grandeur. We've had a daily winner on Monday with Jamie Caven. Obviously, it was Richie Bennett on Tuesday, and then we looked at Wednesday, which was Thornton, and then we had different daily winners in the evening sessions as well. Yeah. There's been different winners all the way through the week, which is fantastic to see. So it has been spread around, but ultimately the one that everybody wants is to be at the pinnacle at the end of Saturday night / Sunday morning. Yeah, so there was a question about Jason Askew. He will be back. Look, we need to rotate players around so it doesn't get stale, and not everyone gets an opportunity, is the wrong word, but to keep it fresh, because that's been the criticism of some TV darts, that it's the same old. We didn't want that to happen. Yeah, I mean, last year was the same with the Live League, because, you know, we had some players playing 6 straight weeks. And I spoke to Dave Evans, and, you know, we played a lot at the beginning, and we had to say, I'm not sure I can do another week. Yeah, I'm absolutely exhausted. So I think to keep players sharp and to give them time to reset themselves, to have the right practice and the right rest, I think rotating the squads for the leagues is the right thing to do. And like I said before to you, Phil, we have a lot of people really interested in playing in this. And I think the organisers are very keen to rotate, to give people an opportunity, and the fans to see different talents up close. Yeah, someone's commented on my 90s curtains. Yeah, I can't wait for the barbers to open. My haircut's been like, every day I've pulled a different style in there, and it's like, what are we going for today? So today I brought back the... If you don't go to the barbers, you're going to start looking like Nick Carter. So get yourself some scissors. I can't bring myself to do it myself. I'm going to have to wait till the 12th. Someone asked, Paul, great job on commentary. They love your energy. Another one, obviously, we've touched on your shoulder problems that you're going to get sorted. At some point, do you hope to swap your nice padded room in there for the Oki once it's done? I'd love to. I'm disappointed that I'm not able to play it this year. I mean, I've got operations plural to come, which is quite daunting. But I'm prepared to go through these things to try and give myself one more chance when I come back. And if I fail to get a Q School graduation, my first crack, then my first look will be towards this, because I don't see this going away the next few seasons. It's a great thing for people who don't have a card. But for me, I'm just enjoying doing this right now. Well, it's such a cliche and such an ordinary answer to give, but I can't look too far forward. Yeah. I've got to get nerve tests on my elbow on Tuesday. So that's the next step. And then after that, I go back to the consultant and we see what we do with the operations after that, because there are going to be 3 of them. Sad to say, but don't worry, the asset will be in our commentary, but top raw commentary brief as well, has to be said. I'm quite happy with the cans. I've had a few people saying that the look with the earphone on and the earphone off, I mean, they're quite heavy things because they're very good, but ultimately you do get ear when you're a commentator. Especially when you've done 95 matches in a week. Yeah, Dan says, good to see Adrian Gray hitting some form. Yeah, look, he's played at the highest level. He's had the massive highs and the big lows, and like we said, this can just rebuild confidence no matter who you are. Do you know what? I've known Adrian since I played him in my World Championship debut, and he doesn't like me talking about the fact I beat him 9 legs to 0. But that was a long time ago. Just to talk about my mate Adrian, he has been instrumental in trying to get soft tip darts into this country and throughout Europe as well. But from him as a dart player, he has never, and I mean that, Phil, never found his top level game.
Yeah.
He has a top level game. He's beaten Phil Taylor. He has got himself to the match players and World Grand Prix and World Championships and inside the top 30 in the world. But I think his confidence level, where it needs to be, it's inside him. I don't think he's actually let it out yet. If he can find that, then he can definitely have another renaissance in steel tip darts.
Christian says, hi to us both. Hi, mate. Hope you are well. Where was the other one? Mark says, how do players qualify for the live league? There's no real qualifying criteria. We just want the best outside the 128. I think that's a fair shout for the viewing, everyone like that. We want the best outside the 128.
If we did qualification events for this, it probably wouldn't take place until May. Yeah. So we've got to invite players along who we think people would like to see. It is an invitational basis, and one of the reasons why Wolfie was in week 1 is because everybody wants to see Martin Adams play, and everybody wants to see Aaron Monk play because he's incredibly unpredictable. So it will rotate. There will be a different lineup next week. There may be some repeat players. We're not going to say who it is because you're going to have to watch. So I will have that exclusive in a little while. But ultimately, I think we just need to have players say, I'm available, I am ready, I'm fit, I'm willing. And then we make the decision as to whether they're in there. So we've got the power. Yeah,
Henry says, this is a good concept for when the world's back to normal.
Yeah.
When crowds are back, how about the Modus Online League Champions of Champions in front of an audience, the 8-week winners on one night?
Is that Henry Deacon by any chance? Yeah, I know Henry.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. And I think it'll happen, personally. I think fans would love to see a big game like Monk against Burnett, right? I mean, we can bill it as the rematch of the World Masters from 25 years ago. There are all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah.
You think about the young against the old, a couple of veterans, a couple of young bucks who don't have cards. We could unearth a talent like Jamie Kelling, for instance. We could search into the archives and say, oh, I wonder what happened to them.
Yeah.
And give them an opportunity, and all of a sudden, click, they find their way again. So that's what this is all about.
100%. Patrick says, respect. Says, hi guys, respect for Barrie Bates reaching the final. Didn't expect it. Disappointed not to see Richie in the final. Yeah, I think we all are. That the league table's there for a reason. However, if we could have a wild card, I think we all know where it would be going.
Yeah, I think if there was a change in the rules and we had a 6th player, I think it definitely would have gone to Richie. But I think at the start of the week, if you look at the form of some of the players through Q School, Richie was quite high up that list of the people who didn't get through. And a lot of people would have expected him to make the final. But for Barrie to make the final, it's just testament to his tenacious nature. And I'm really pleased for him. Yeah,
Mark, good question here from Mark. Got to feel sorry for Fallon. She put in some great performances, just couldn't get over the line into the finals. Yeah, you could see that Fallon hasn't played a lot of competitive darts, obviously, since Q School. I don't think she's played that much. But we saw glimpses of genius. I think she just needs some regular match play and regular competition because it's not a million miles away.
It isn't. I think it's the same for a lot of the players who played this week and last week. When you see them on the first couple of days, there are definite signs of ring rust.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to Chris Mason last night, actually, about how good Colin Monk looked 100%. For someone who only played 2 days. I think there's definitely something still there with Colin, and that was really great to see. But when it comes to Fallon, I think she needs a good period of 2, 3, 4 weeks of constant work on the dartboard against players, and the match sharpness will arrive. She had a real problem with darts colliding with her previous barrels in the board and ending up on the floor. And ultimately, she was starting to get frustrated with that. And you can completely understand that does happen now and again. But I think the more she plays, the more that will disappear.
Just what you said there. What about a pay-per-view game? Monk versus Monk.
I don't know. Have I got any 50 pence to do, probably? Well, yeah. I think you look at the likes of, Monk Senior, Monk Junior, Jenkins, of course. There's an immense amount of banter between these people. And if you stick a packet of crisps on it, I think they'll still play the same as if it was 100,000. But pay-per-view, I don't know. I think we should give it away for free and let people enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm only joking with the pay-per-view. Harry says, who's the favourite, lads? We spoke about that earlier. But for us, Chaz Barstow is favourite. Thornton second.
Absolutely. I think game 10 of the night, the final game, could come down to the final 2 points on offer. The 180s between the two of them are very close. 22 for Robert this week, 21 for Barstow, but Barstow's only played 8 matches, and Robert has played 15, almost double that. So I think that's the telling statistic. But Robert did look good on Wednesday, and if he brings that form tonight, it could be too good.
Yeah, right. Last 5 minutes from us then, guys. So get your questions in and we will get them the best we can do in these 5 minutes. A lot of comments for you, Paul. Leo, the Asset best commentator. Get a lot of love in the chat room this evening.
I don't know about that. I'm a half decent player and someone who can articulate. I had some really good training when I was working in Australia for the government, and I was taught how to speak to large groups of people. So it's pretty natural for me to gesticulate and show boards and things like that. I think commentary was always in my blood somewhere. Another
one for you here, and you've probably spoken about it somewhere, but we'll ask you. Mason says, Paul, why did you change from your pairs flights to a standard flight?
Ooh, I started with standards. The unicorn sort of 6-sided hexagonal flight. That was the one that I used to get into the big time, and then I went through a process of using the pairs because someone said that if I used a smaller flight with a bit more speed, I would score more 180s, which did happen for a good 2 or 3 years. When you start to lose your form a bit with a smaller flight, the dart starts to fishtail and the air starts to lose its natural trajectory. So you go to a bigger flight to get some extra drag to make sure that the dart goes in a bit straighter, and that was the reason behind it. And I've stayed with the standard ever since because let's be honest, I'm not the player I was 10 years ago.
Still won a PDC major, which a lot of players and a lot of ex-players that on TV and all that haven't. So still a great place to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't regret anything I've done. Well, maybe a few things that I've done, not on the dartboard, but when it comes to the equipment changes and things like that, everything's been done with a purpose. And I'm a better person for everything I've been through. But I think it's largely forgotten that I've won 5 PDC titles. I won the Australian Open, which was my first PDC ranking title. I won 3 others on the floor, and I beat 5 different players for each title. Thornton in the first one, Adrian Lewis in the second one, Terry Jenkins. I'm losing track now. Steve Brown in the last one. That was really interesting. But yeah, I should bring that up with Brown a little bit more.
Someone says Thornton versus Sherrick. Will it ever happen? Stay tuned. There's plenty more weeks to come. So we're not ruling anything in or anything out just yet, are we, mate?
Well, that's all. I'm never say never.
Yeah.
And don't say that we can't do something with this league because anything's possible.
Mark says, has there any 9 darters this week? No, we've gone a couple of times back to back.
We had 7 from Richie.
Yeah.
I think he went for the treble 15 and missed it by a very short amount of space. But yeah, I think that's the best we've seen. And I don't think anybody's stopped Andy Jenkins 350 and 6 yet.
No, 100%. That was magical. Right, last couple from you. Someone says, are we going to invite some of the Americans to play? Look, once travel restrictions are not here, look, we're not ruling anyone in, all right? But obviously, whilst the travel restrictions are in, it's a little bit difficult, but hopefully there's light under the tunnel, so we're never going to say never. Right, and Jason says here, Nico, have you officially hung up the tungsten? You spoke about this earlier. No, he hasn't, mate. No. The Asset is still live and kicking.
I got my darts in the next room.
Yeah, we had a bit of chuck earlier.
Yeah, I can throw within reason, but if I keep throwing, I'm going to start getting pain in my shoulder. So the problems that I have, I'm willing to make the sacrifice of time over 2021, get things right, go through the rehab, because I'm going to be in cast for a couple of times throughout the course of this year, which will be very interesting in the commentary box with that on. But no, I haven't hung the darts up yet. I am more than prepared to go through hell this year to make sure that I'm fully fit going into 2022.
Yep. Gavin says, what time do we start? First game, 9:30 GMT this evening. So make sure you check out the Online Darts YouTube channel where you're watching now. There's already a video set up. It's there waiting for you. So make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on that video. And as soon as we press the live button, probably about 20 past 9-ish, but first game, 9:30. Paul, of course, will be calling it in for you as always. But we're going to wrap it up there because we've got some prep to do beforehand and everything like that. Paul, massive thank you for joining us on the preview this evening and looking forward to the action this evening. Remember, 10 matches live and exclusive here, Online Darts. Make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on, and we will see you all very soon for the finals.